Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy StumpD back for the OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking the new Kid Luffy and the fighter team into some PvP, and with this particular character, fighter's got a fairly big buff, so I thought I'll put together a couple of different combinations and a couple of different comps to showcase what the fighter team can do, because the fighter team's like quickly become like a very prominent team in the game. We've got a lot of new PvP characters like PvP Legend Garp, Donjin Zhao, PvP Rare Recruit King, Katakuri with his 6+ level limit break, Marco, Jinbei, Ulti coming to the front, who's who even, like, there's a lot of very, very good options when it comes to the fighter team, and with this new Luffy comes an absolute monstrous buff. This Luffy is insane for fighters. He basically brings out the best in them because he has such a good passive, and he has such a good special. But if you enjoy the PvP content, as always, make sure to smash the like button for me if you're new to the channel, or you haven't done so already, hit that big red subscribe button. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the first comp, and that is a Psy powerhousey fighter comp. Now, the core is your Katakuri, your Marco, and your Jinbei. They boost fighters, powerhouse, and Psy characters, and then Luffy and Ulti on the edges both boost fighters. So you kind of want them on the edges so they don't die, and if someone does die, you have King to sort of come in and just do a lot of damage. The rumble ability of Luffy, though, is actually ridiculous. He gives fighter teammates HP up level 5, speed up level 5, and defense up level 5. So a lot of very good buffs for the fighter squad, namely the HP and the defense combination. If it, like, the speed was something like guard, like, this guy would be crazy in terms of a defensive option. And his special is actually very, very powerful too. He's special on a 25-second cooldown. 25 seconds is absolutely ridiculous. Targets fighter teammates for attack up level 5, speed up level 5, defense up level 5 for 25 seconds too, by the way, so that can overlap. And then targets 2 enemies for a fixed damage of 3,000. Now, that 3,000 fixed damage is something that definitely should not be ignored. Whilst it is only 2 enemies, fixed damage is so powerful in the meta at the moment. Stuff like HP cuts and fixed damage can definitely win you fights, especially when the enemy, stuff like the Dex team in particular, has a shitload of defense, has a shitload of HP, and a shitload of guard. So having that 3,000 fixed damage helps out so massively because it basically just bypasses those very annoying mechanics, namely guard. So 3,000 fixed damage in Luffy, great rumble ability, great rumble special, means you can do a lot of very cool things. Now, this particular team I wouldn't recommend too much, and I just wanted to showcase this first to sort of just talk about Luffy, because Jinbei boosts powerhouse characters, Marco boosts Psy and powerhouse. Whilst you're boosting Luffy a little bit, you're not getting the full beneficial effects of Marco, but it is an option if you do want to try it. It is pretty cool. So moving on to the next comp now, we're actually using young Garp and Donjin Zhao, the 2 PvP rare recruits that actually came out together, both being powerhouse, so Jinbei actually still works quite nicely on this team, because Jinbei will boost powerhouse units whilst being a fighter character himself. If you have level limit break 5 Jinbei, V1 Jinbei, that's another option. I actually am like 1 copy off with my Jinbei, so actually that would give him his PvP abilities. I should have used him. I totally spaced on that. But Jinbei can definitely still work. He's a Psy character as well, this particular comp works very, very nicely because it has a 8-man team. So using Donjin Zhao in the front brings out the bench. And because we are using a bunch of Dex units, we can actually bring PELLE and Sober Mask. You could even use something like Dalton if you really wanted to, and then have that powerhouse buff. But remember, when PELLE comes in, he's not really boosting Luffy. It's more just for those other powerhouse characters. And PELLE being just an absolute dominant powerhouse, like, for the Dex and powerhouse team, I just couldn't ignore him on the bench. Plus, having King there is really, really nice. It just gives you a lot of extra options for damage output. And when you are talking offense, having King in the team, probably in the front lines if I'm honest, which you guys will see at the back end of this video, is definitely something you want to do. But you can do some cheeky shenanigans with stuff like Donjin Zhao. You can reverse specials. You can special blind. And you can avoid a bunch of different stuff. If you're coming up against quick teams, bringing stuff like Garp, Donjin Zhao is going to be the way to go. You do have to be careful with King, though, and that's a big reason why I put him in the back, is because you have to be very, very careful with coming up against, like, Akainu and Izo Kiku, those types of units that can just absolutely decimate strength. It's a big reason why I took Ulti off this particular team comp as well, but you could easily replace Jinbei with, like, any of the other 2 Jinbeis. Now I'm thinking about it, V2 Jinbei with his level limit break would have been a great option here too, because he also boosts Psy, which is super, super nice. So, let's move on to the next comp now. Alright, so moving on to the next comp now, we brought Marco back into the squad and we dropped Garp. I just wanted to see how, like, Donjin Zhao would fare if, like, Marco was only giving him a little bit of a buff. Marco's really nice for fighter defensive teams because you get a lot of healing off with Marco. The combination of Marco and Katakuri can really do some damage because you're getting a lot of, like, attack with the two of them in terms of their attack damaging specials, but both of them can heal. So if you have them in the middle, they can definitely heal themselves up. Marco can heal your team up. You can keep Luffy alive, and you can just keep popping Luffy's special because it's on a 25-second cooldown. You will see it quite frequently. Having Donjin Jiao to sort of just nerf the enemy, do your damage over time, special reverse and special bind, means that Luffy has that opportunity to continually pop off. If you come up against something crazy, though, that is going to target Luffy, he's going to get slapped on most of these first teams that you see, but once we go towards the back end of this video and we start optimizing the team for more offensive value, and we start going more powerhouse-centric, fighter-centric, you'll start to see why Luffy can sort of thrive as he's just getting full buffs from the entire team. Unfortunately, we're still rocking Jinbei, still rocking Marco. I really should have showcased the other Jinbei, so I do apologize about that. The downside is, when I'm doing this voiceover, PvP's not live at the moment, so I can't really take on any other teams until PvP comes back. But if you guys want to see another reiteration of these particular teams, I might do a short or something like that with like V2 Jinbei, V1 Jinbei, doing some stuff there. But obviously with Marco, you kind of want to have the treasure map Jinbei, is that way you're getting that side buff as well, and Jinbei can just kind of go crazy with the defensive capabilities he has. As you can see there, that 3,000 fixed damage is nothing to scoff at. Like, it definitely helps you out. It definitely just take out a few units as well. It's quite nice to sort of just finishing off a unit that might have disgusting defense, disgusting guard, and you're only hitting like 70 to 80 damage. That 3,000 fixed damage can definitely work in your favor. We get our Katakuri special miner on this fight as well, so it just drags out the fight. This comp that you kind of see here is more of a defensive option, and then you would just kind of maybe run like no bench, just sort of bait people into fighting it. You might be able to time them out. You might get a few like cheeky little dubs there. So it is an interesting little defensive build that I wanted to showcase in the video as well, because if you are going to be using Marco and Jinbei, like, I would highly recommend only using them on like a defensive option. And you definitely can run them as frontline units, and I really wanted to sort of showcase the Psy fighter sort of variation that Luffy has. But it's definitely not the best fighter comp that is available. It's definitely something that you can do. Marco with his fixed damage is super nice. It's definitely something you can do, but it's probably not the greatest if you do have stuff like King, and you do have stuff like Garb, Donjin Jiao, and all those types of units too. Alright, so finally, to wrap up the video, not just this fight, but the next couple fights, we are sort of focusing purely on the fighter meta. And an amazing character that has been floating around in Rumble for a very long time, mainly on strength and fighter striker teams, is actually Jack. Jack is an absolute monster, especially when you get his special off. You get a lot of HP cuts, and you get a lot of defense for the team. So Jack is great, and that way you can bring back ulti. But ideally, you don't want to be using these characters when you are versing quick enemies. If you are versing a quick team, you really want to steer away from using strength characters. So stuff like King, Jack, ulti, you want to be really careful of. Who's Who even as well. Who's Who's another really good option for this time. Well, for the fighter team, because he's a powerhouse fighter booster. He's not going to boost Luffy, but the thing with the fighter team is most of the fighters are actually powerhouses as well. There are some exceptions, obviously, like Jack and Luffy, and that's about it. All I can think of at the moment. But you could definitely bring him if you need some more damage. But the best damage dealer for the fighter team is going to be King. So if you can bring King into the front line, the fact that King boosts fighters as well helps out drastically, because he is giving buffs to the entire team, whilst you are still getting a lot of damage as well. So definitely something to look at in terms of the PvP banner that should be coming later. And hopefully, with the PvP banner that comes out later, they do some really cool stuff with fighters or even shooters, because both Ace and Luffy in PvP is absolutely disgusting, and both those teams are actually a lot of fun. And with the GP stats that are coming up in the GP event, fighters and shooters should be getting, or shooters mainly, are getting quite a significant buff. So with Luffy as well, he does have a GP that is a little bit interesting. I do think Ace is much better, but he boosts Psy and strength characters attack, HP, crit up level 4, and then he has fighters attack up level and speed up level 3 and CT speed level 2. His burst is a little bit to be desired, but you can use it twice. All you have to do is deal 60,000 damage. Targets 3 low attack teammates for CT speed up level 50%, and then targets 3 high attack enemies for attack down level 10. So good nerfing, good CT speed, but he's not exactly the greatest when you are looking at the GP, because strength is actually just ridiculously bad still, even with all their buffs. Alright, and to wrap the video up, I wanted to do something absolutely crazy. I thought we'd take on the hardest piece of content in the entire game and go into the Challenge PELLE event versus the Dex team. 100,000 CP power is absolutely absurd. And obviously, you guys aren't going to see this in regular Grand Party, in regular PvP matches. But I thought for the content, I thought it would be fun to actually take this on. And this is not a secure team. I think I ran this like 8 times and I got the dub twice. But it was interesting to see that the fighter team could actually get this done. Like, it was super impressive. But as I said, you're never going to see this in regular PvP. But the fact that you could actually take on something disgusting like this was absolutely insane. Now, this particular team comp is probably the best of the fighter team comps that I did test. The line that you just saw as well, with Donjin Jao in the front and like King in the back, can definitely do a lot of work as well with Jack and stuff like that too, with the HP cuts and whatnot. But I do find that this particular comp works exceptionally well. Big shout out to my boy Sim for bringing this to the forefront, using King in the front rather than using him as a bench unit and really sort of using him as all your damage output. But Luffy and Garp, the combination of them two just build up your bulk. They give you defense level 5 each. They both give you HP, and their specials give you attack, give you speed, give you counter, and Luffy will give you defense as well, which is very, very powerful. Next, you've got Ulti and you've got Katakuri, who are your damage dealers for their specials. Katakuri can keep himself alive. You can slap him in the middle if you want to, because his healing is absolutely wild. As you guys saw that, he's healing for like 7,000. So if he takes the forefronts of attacks, he can heal back. And when Ulti pops her special off, she's giving you a lot of stats. She's giving you stuff like speed, attack, critical hit. A lot of very, very good buffs. And the idea of this team is to get King to pop off, to do all of your damage output, because he ignores defense. He is your offensive key, and he is the one that is going to do all the damage when you are coming up against craziness, like defense up, guard, all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, I would not take this team against the quick-driven, because obviously quick like Akainu and Shiryu are going to absolutely decimate stuff like Ulti and King. But when you are versing Dex, the fact that we are resisting damage from Dex with King and Ulti does help us to tank those shots from stuff like PELLE, stuff like Dalton, stuff like Doflamingo. Even like the Luffy shots are just absolutely key to make sure that we are tanking. Now, the beautiful thing about this particular fight, and the reason why we won, is because Doflamingo actually popped his special off, or he got his special charge there and attacked right away. So he just missed his special just on the 30-second mark. We got some really, really good RNG there, and because of that, we actually managed to win this fight. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, Dofi's going to pop off in the last 30 seconds. You're going to lose your entire team, and you're going to lose. As I mentioned, I only won twice out of like 8 times trying this, which isn't honestly too bad. But then with Donjin Jao coming in for Katakuri, having him as a bench option worked exceptionally well, because when he comes in, he can just annoy the crap out of the team. The damage over time is actually disgustingly large. Not only that, but he has the ability to special bind and special reverse. As you guys saw, we special binded Doflamingo, which means we avoid the Doflamingo shot. And once we do that, we can start picking off his team one by one, and then that way we're just in good stead. Once we have more units than the enemy, we are just in a much nicer place. However, when Doflamingo is on the board, you do have to be very, very careful. As you guys will see here, though, we actually managed to just get the dub with a bit of a knockback there, with PELLE coming in. And Luffy just finishing off Doflamingo before he'd get his special off in the last 5 seconds. So that was the challenge team against Dex with the fighter comp. But let's move on to the master comp now, because that is a little bit more realistic in what you'll see in PvP. Alright, so with the master comp, this is a little bit more realistic, and this is something that you will actually see when you are playing PvP. This Dex comp is quite big. It is a little bit scary. They've got PELLE, they've got Dalton. Queen's in the front as well. You've got Luffy and Kizaru giving you defense. And then in the back, you have a nuker in Lucci and Sobermask. If this team didn't have Moria and had like a different Dex unit that could just nuke in the back, or even had something like Donjin Jao in the front, man, it would be actually ridiculously scary. But even still, this is like a Dex team that you can definitely see in your regular PvP travels. And showcasing the fighter team just had no issues with this particular comp. I was talking to my boy Sim, and he said that he just won 3 out of 3. He was using a bit of a different bench, and I guess that's where you get your flexibility on this particular team. The bench, you can consist of like many different units. If you're versing more a strength-centric comp, you can use stuff like the Brogy monsters, you can use Whitebeard, they're both fighters. You can just go for your stereotypical int bench, you could run Smoker and the Giants. Hell, you can even use the Giants and then use something like PELLE in the back as well. I opted to go with the Dex bench because I am running Garp in the front, and then utilizing my Dex bench just means that they come in and they buff Garp in particular. But with PELLE also boosts powerhouse units, right? And this whole team is powerhouse-centric except for Luffy. So if you lose Luffy, and then you have your bench coming in, you have like some synergy there with PELLE, not only boosting the Dex units, but also boosting the powerhouse characters. Dalton in the back, like he's just there because he's so good. You could use Sobermask, like he's another very, very good powerhouse fighting Dex option, so that way you can get the buffs from both PELLE and you get all of those Dex buffs there as well. But as you guys will see there, like as long as you have King, and as long as King is safe, you are going to have all the damage that you need. You basically just need to sort of just tank some shots here and there, use the bulk of Luffy and Garp, as well as the healing of Katakuri, to basically just continually keep yourself alive, do some chip damage here and there, so that when King actually pops off, he'll actually decimate the opposition. In the last 40 seconds, or it might be the last 40 seconds, last 30 seconds. I can't exactly remember when King gets his CT speed, but towards the back end of the fight, King gets a bunch of CT speed, which means towards the end of the fight, King is going to start racking up that damage very, very quickly, and he will be able to get his special a second time before you run out. I have found that King takes a very long time to get his charge up, but once you get to the last 30 seconds and you get the CT charge from like the regular PvP as well as his boost, you are never going to worry about getting that special off, and that's definitely going to wrap up a fight, especially if the enemy has like 6 units left. It's never really a concern. I did find that Donjin Zhao on the bench was just absolutely incredible. He was a fantastic character to come in when you do lose, or if you do lose a unit, because him coming in with his special to just pop it off, to just remove some special charge, to special blind, to do the damage over time is actually ridiculously powerful and helps you out so drastically to avoid stuff like Doflamingo shots, stuff like Luffy shots, stuff like Lucci shots as well. Like, you can just avoid them. Look at Luffy. Man, ulti just hits so hard, man. King, unfortunately, only hits 1 unit here. Could have just easily wrapped the fight up there, but look, it is what it is. So that's going to wrap up the video. A bit of PvP for the fighter team and the new Luffy. Let me know your thoughts and opinions of this unit in the comment section below, and while you're down there, don't forget to belt the like button. If you are new to the channel, you haven't done so already, that'd be great. Subscribe button. We upload OPTC stuff every single day, but most importantly, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, so thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.